Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 8 of Paramount Plus's Mayor of Kingstown, entitled Santa Jesus. I'm starting to get a little frustrated with their episode titles. Not really, like I don't really care, but I'm like, this episode had one of the best scenes I have ever seen in anything, and they named that episode out of this throwaway line from Bunny on Mike's voicemail. Like, what the fuck, dog? Like, who is naming these episodes? Like, this should have been called, I don't know, man, Charlie Strikes Back? I don't know. But what, Santa Jesus? Like, this throwaway fucking line on Mike's voicemail, and in an episode with one of the sickest fucking scenes I've ever seen, they named that. Anyway, I'm almost struggling to give thoughts on this episode as a whole because all I can do is think about how that Charlie scene was like the most shocking fucking scene I've ever seen in a TV show. Like, I'm not gonna say it's number one, but it like there's been times like when people think about that kind of thing, they think about the Red Wedding, you know, something like that on Game of Thrones. I know I struggle to think of another one, but like this is like, well, for me also Oberyn's death on Game of Thrones was Oberyn's death was more Red Wedding for me than the Red Wedding was. Like everyone else, the Red Wedding is like their ultimate devastation moment on Game of Thrones. Mine is Oberyn, but this scene with Charlie it's up there. Like let's just talk about it, because that scene, I was not ready. And I want to talk about why. So a couple episodes back, they introduced Charlie in that scene with Ian, and when I did my video, I even commented like, what was that scene about? What was that about? It was the only time we saw Charlie in that episode. Then I don't think we saw Charlie at all the next week. And then we saw him again in the last episode, and that's when Ian brings up going to the dentist. And they also introduced this heart attack letter plot line. And again, at the time, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this is a strange thing to kind of introduce so late into the season. I also don't really see why an officer involved in the prison riot needs to be held accountable. Like, for what? Like, what did they do? Like I keep saying, like I've said this whole time, like, it's a prison riot. All bets are off at that point. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to talk about why this scene worked so well on me. Now, you guys, maybe it didn't hit you guys the way it hit me, but I'm gonna explain to you why it hit me the way it hit me, and I think that's gonna help you understand how good of a job I think the show did pulling this off. So I still think it's a stretch to get me to believe that someone needs to be, held accountable for the riot thing. So the heart attack letter plot line, I'm still not kind of a big fan of, but I don't think the show has done a good job of convincing me that what's his name, Robert, needs to be held accountable for something he did in the, like, because Kyle's even like, well, what the fuck, what did Robert do? Like, it was a prison riot, what the fuck? So like, even Kyle is like speaking on my behalf. Like, I don't really buy this. But if this Charlie scene is what they were building up to, I don't give a fuck how they got there anymore. That shit was incredible. So, yeah, whatever you wanted, whatever you needed to do with that fucking heart attack letter, I'm glad you did it. I don't give a fuck about it. No, I didn't like it, but I don't give a fuck now because that scene was incredible. So, let's talk about why it worked so well on me. Again, we're starting with the fact that I think they did a good job of the little scenes prior to kind of build toward this. But let's talk about what they did in this episode. So, this episode tricked me into letting my guard down. The whole time Ian is with Charlie, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? And he gets to this house, and I'm just so lost. And I'm like, what does he have planned for this house? And like, while he's at this house. And meanwhile, my man who plays Charlie, I wish I knew his name, but he was Lem on The Shield. I've seen him on a lot of stuff. Fucking crushing this episode. Making everything 10 times scarier by helping to deliver like these conflicting tones. Like you have Charlie behaving like childlike essentially, and then Ian who is clearly up to something nefarious, and that just somehow made Charlie even scarier because you could feel the tension in the scene. You see Ian is clearly up to no good. You're like, why does he have that envelope? Why is he making Charlie put on the fucking glove? Like there's so much, like what is going on? You know it's not good. Meanwhile, Charlie's there acting like a fucking 6-year-old shit. Like, I had to sit down and let me just chain you to the stove when you have a seat. Like, he doesn't give a fuck, right? He's childlike. So that made it to me, that for me, that made the scene even tenser. So once it became clear what Ian was doing, that was all of this was just to scare the guy who was supposed to be testifying against Robert into not testifying, I let my guard down. Because I'm like, oh, so that's what Ian's been up to. Okay. I mean, Mike told him not to do shit, and this is getting a psychopath killer out of prison to threaten someone is the complete opposite of not doing anything. But okay, I accept this. I could accept Ian as a character who maybe who doesn't listen to good advice, does something stupid like this, but he got the fucking job done. So I'm like, okay, that's why I got the Charlie scene. That's why the heart attack letter thing is happening. This was all a setup so that we could get this scene where Ian uses Charlie to essentially blackmail this guy into not testifying. I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that. I buy that. This is fine. I don't have any problem with this. And I'm calm now. I'm like, okay, cool. I can let my guard down. We smooth. Okay, I see what Ian was up to and it worked. So I'm satisfied with this as a payoff on the Ian Charlie storyline. So when they're leaving the house, I'm already fully relaxed and like come down from that scene. Like I'm like, okay, that was nervous, but that was a great scene, and now I'm calm and I'm satisfied with what they gave me for the reason for the Ian and Charlie thing. And then when dude calls Charlie a rapist, and they set that up too by having Ian not use that word around him, like I want to like the way it moved so fucking fast made it way better. It's like dude says rapist, and like my mind is still thinking like, oh shit, Ian said he doesn't like that word, not to use that word. And like while my brain is still like processing that thought, Charlie grabs the guy. That thought is interrupted by, oh shit, this really escalated. This is terrible. So before that thought can complete, the motherfucker's dead. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I went like this. Like I jumped, I covered my mouth, like the whole nine. Like I was out. Like they totally got me with that. And it escalated so quick. I was not ready. My guard was completely down. And that fucking floored me. I absolutely fucking love that shit, man. And now, you know they're gonna discover foul play somehow. Like, dude calls and says he can't testify, and then there's a break-in, and he's killed right after that. No, they're gonna think, okay, somebody might have been in his house who threatened him into making that call, and then that person killed him afterwards. Let's go to the house and see if we can find clues. And they're gonna find something. And it's gonna. I'm almost nervous thinking about it, cause like I feel like they're gonna find something of Charlie's, and they're gonna be like, "What the fuck?" Like they're gonna find something of Charlie's, and that's gonna be that's gonna seal Ian's doom. But I love the idea of the brief Ian and Charlie scene, the heart attack letter, setting up not the completion of the heart attack letter storyline, plot line, but setting up a new one where Ian is royally fucked. and now we have to wonder, how the fuck is this guy? Like, once this goes left, how left is it gonna go and how bad is it gonna be for Ian? And I can't wait to see how this shit plays out. And I hope they do it in these last 2 episodes rather than pushing it to season 3, because I don't think we're gonna get a season 3. So I really hope that they have this plan to play out in this season. Also of note, Hugh Dillon, the actor who plays Ian, I'm just like random, like I play the credits because I like the music for this show, but I don't ever actually like really look at it or read it. And I'm reading it and it says Hugh Dillon is a co-creator and a co-writer on the show. And Hugh Dillon's the guy that plays Ian. And he wrote this episode. He wrote it. And I put on my Facebook page, like I'm doing my live commentary thing while I'm watching it. And I'm like, oh shit, Hugh Dillon wrote this episode? Well, I expect some great things from Ian. And sure enough, like, what the fuck? He wrote himself like the best fucking shit ever, man. It's like you kind of an asshole. Like you wrote yourself the best fucking shit. So moving on to the Mike stuff, we see Mike walking from like bar to bar throughout this episode. Actually, let me rewind a little bit. I have some. I think. I don't know how to phrase it. I feel like the Mike storyline and how it ended was unclear, but I think I have a pretty good idea of what happened, and I went online essentially trying to confirm my interpretation of it, and I couldn't. So now I'm wondering what you guys thought of it, and yeah, I'm wondering how you guys interpreted it. And when I talk about it, I'm gonna talk about my interpretation and what I read as an interpretation. So, last week's cliffhanger turned out to be much ado about nothing. Iris was perfectly fine. We saw her talking with Milo in this episode, and nothing had happened to Mike. You know, because I was wondering, I'm like, okay, why is Mike's phone, like, why is it not with him while Kyle is calling? I'm thinking, like, did something happen to him? Or he's in trouble or whatever? Was he taken? Whatever. But no, it turns out he left it there on purpose because he wanted to go off the grid. And like I said, we see him walking from like bar to bar throughout this episode. But at one particular bar, he leaves his car keys, and his gun with the bartender. And he says to not give him back the car keys no matter what he says, but he's gonna ask for the gun and to give that back to him. So then he goes to a different bar. I don't know, man, he hit like 18 bars during this. Yeah, he did a serious bar crawl. He goes to a different bar and he meets with a woman named Allison who lost someone named Terry in the prison riots. Now, given her casual racism, I think it's safe to assume that Terry is probably her husband, and he was probably one of the AB guards that works at the prison. So he's probably, what does AB stand for now? Aryan Brotherhood, yes. He's probably one of them. So Mike ends up casually having sex with this woman, which I thought was kind of weird because they haven't really made Mike into I don't want to say romantic because we don't know if it was romantic leading up to the sex. It could have been like a fucking business proposal. I don't know. But they haven't really struck him. He hasn't really struck me as the kind of guy who's out here worried about women. He's just like all business all the time, right? But for whatever reason, well, I can't say for whatever reason. I know the reason now. But he sleeps with this woman. And while he's in her bathroom, we, the viewers, overhear her on the phone with someone telling them that Mike is there. And she hangs up once she knows Mike's coming out of the bathroom. He gets back. So once he leaves, he starts getting followed by a car immediately. He gets back to the bar. He tells the bartender to give him his gun back. And ultimately, he ends up shooting the person who was in the car because that person comes after him after he comes out of the bar, trying to hit him with his car and shit. Now, there's a bit I want to discuss here. I just want to start with the fact that Mike's plan relied on the guy waiting until Mike got his gun back to make his move. So we're already stretching the limits of plausibility here. Like, the guy could have just killed Mike while he was walking to the bar. He could have killed him as soon as he came out of the house. But whatever reason, plot armor protected Mike, and he made it all the way back to the bar, and this guy was like, I'm not going to go after him until he go in and get his gun first. Let's just establish that shitty. But make no mistake, though, I think this was a plan by Mike. He knew he was going to do something that requires gun, so he said, make sure you give this back to me when I ask for it. So that told me, once he did that, that told me after he left that he was up to something. He wasn't just going off the grid. He had a plan. He was doing something. And he knew that it would require his gun later. So, like I said, I went online after the episode because I wanted to see if I was interpreting the ending the same as everyone else. Like, I had my interpretation, and I wanted to see if other people felt the same way because I wasn't really sure. And I read a few reviews, and they all made the ending sound kind of coincidental. Like, Terry just called up some person, that person then tried to kill Mike. They were unsuccessful, and that was it. And I'm like, I don't think this was not that fucking casual, that fucking coincidental, that just somebody had it out for Mike and they failed. So am I alone in thinking that was Davidson in that car? Because my interpretation of this was that Mike went to go fuck Allison, because he knew she'd dime him out to Gunner. My thought is that she called Gunner. Gunner told Davidson to take out Mike because he's mad about Mike about the drone situation from last week. Because you remember he beat up the guy that was operating the drones, and Gunner's like, oh, we had a deal. You know, he's all pissed off and shit, right? So the woman Allison calls Gunner like, yo, he's here right now. Gunner probably called Davidson, who, I mean, I would think Davidson would have, well, no, it doesn't matter. No, it was probably in the middle of the night or something, so Davidson was probably at home. Well, no, it wasn't. It was the middle of the day. I don't think Davidson would be at work. But anyway, I still think it was probably Davidson that he called. He could have just called him into prison and was like, yo, Mike's at Allison house right now. And Davidson's like, all right, I'm going to go take a lunch. He goes kill Mike on his lunch break. Whatever the case may be, I feel like it was Davidson in that car. So that read to me like a big fucking move on Mike's part. But every review I read made it sound like it was like Mike just killed some fucking rando. And like that wasn't my interpretation. It looked to me like he orchestrated a move on Davidson. That was, or at least, even if that wasn't Davidson, I still think everything else applies. Like, I think she was talking to Gunner, and I think Gunner sent that person after Mike because he's mad about the drone shit. And Mike set that up knowing that Allison would call Gunner, and that was his way of taking somebody off the board before they could get to him, because he probably assumed Gunner's gonna send somebody after me. So that was my interpretation of that scene. But like, I read like 3 reviews that were all casually just kind of like, yeah, Terry calls somebody, that someone follows Mike and he kills that person. I'm like, that's way less than what I saw. And maybe I read too much into it. I don't know, but that was my interpretation. One other thing, I do want to talk about something I didn't like. I didn't like how Bunny's release was glazed over. After they made it seem like Evelyn wasn't even going to sign the paperwork last week, they built up this idea of will he, won't he get out of jail? And then they just like had this underwhelming announcement. He's like, yeah, I get out tomorrow. Like, I thought there was still gonna be some work that Mike was gonna have to do. So, cause like when Mike goes to fucking on his fucking going off the grid, I'm like, you better wait until Bunny get out before you pull that shit. But I mean, I don't know. It's weird to me that they kind of like skipped over that or glazed over. I don't know, but I can't pinpoint why. But the way Bunny's is like, yeah, I'm getting out tomorrow. Like, that was a way underwhelming delivery of news that has been built up for like 5 episodes. Like, hey, is Bunny gonna get out of prison? And then they just, I don't know. I felt that was kind of shitty. A couple of thoughts real quick. When Bunny comes into him and Raphael's little apartment in the prison, he's like, what you making? And Raph said, they ain't had no fucking andouille, so I'm like, they have no fucking andouille is definitely my favorite line of the season. I don't know why. That should have been the episode. If you want to name the episode after a fucking throwaway line, call it They Ain't Had No Fucking Andouille. That's a way better episode title than Santa Jesus. The bartender lady that he gives his car keys and gun to, and he's throwing back the whiskey. She's like, it's a little bit early to get your swerve on. I'm like, what is this, 1997? Like, why did she just blow all the dust off of that phrase? Just bring back, get your swerve on. Like, the Big Timers and Cash Money Records. Like, what is this? Oh, I just thought that was really weird. I feel like slang hits Kingstown late or something like that. It's a little early to get your swerve on. Oh, man. All my thoughts are funny to me, by the way. That's usually what my thoughts are. Were Bunny and Raphael dating? I just didn't know it. Like, he buys this guy a keyboard as like a going away gift. Raph is sitting there looking like all forlorn and shit. Then they show Bunny later. He was picked up by half-naked women. He's having the party of the year on top of the Metro PCS. He's just living up the life. And they cut the Raph, and he's like sitting in prison looking sad and depressed. And I'm like, this feels like a breakup to me. This don't feel like what it's supposed to feel like. This feel like two people who was dating, and Buddy's was like, yeah, I'm going away for college, so we can't be together no more. And I like how Bunny tries to still keep it cool, like, you in charge now. And Raph's just like, okay, yeah, I guess. He wasn't doing that, but that's what he was acting like. Miriam's permanently worried face is getting on my nerves. Like, are they gonna find a way to make this plot with this kid that's getting transferred? Are they gonna find a way to make this interesting like they did with the Charlie Ian thing? Like, obviously, Mike not picking up his phone probably cost this kid, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if this kid ends up dead somehow or whatever. But to what end? Like, what are they planning with this? But yeah, Miriam's permanently worried. Like, she always looks worried. I don't know. That irritates me. And then I thought it was interesting how Ian was about to kill Charlie until he said thank you for the French air. And I'm like, if he said that to me, I probably wouldn't kill him either. Like, that's kind of cute. Even though you, like, I guess you were a rapist and a serial killer and you just killed this guy, even though I was just trying to get him to, like, not testify no more and we was fine, and then you killed him. You said French air, so fuck it. Let me put my shit away. I guess that works. I guess I buy that. Whatever. But really enjoyable episode. Like I said, incredible fucking scene. The Charlie scene. Like, I can't wait to watch it again. That shit, man, that shit. I'm surprised I didn't wake my wife up. I yelled so loud and covered my mouth and still was just like, oh shit. So yeah, great episode. I'll see you guys next week for episode 9, which is the penultimate episode of the series. And until then, peace.